The moment Elias Cole's name was called, he felt a familiar, unwelcome shift in the room. It wasn't just the stale air of the Charlotte Municipal Court. It was the way Judge Alistair Finch's gaze locked onto him, cold and sharp as broken glass. Elias had watched a white kid in a hoodie and an older, disheveled man in a wrinkled shirt both get a pass for being late. Finch had even shared a chuckle with the second man. But for Elias, the smile was gone. This was different. This was personal. From the bench, Judge Finch's lips curled into a sneer. "Look at him," he thought, his eyes raking over Elias's tailored suit. "Struts in here in his 1,000 suit like he owns the place. Thinks the rules are for other people." The judge leaned forward, his knuckles white on the gavel. Time to teach one of them a lesson in respect. "You're late, Mr. Cole." Finch's voice sliced through the courtroom, dripping with contempt. "Is this court merely an afterthought in your busy schedule?" He deliberately mispronounced the name, making it sound like Colas. Elias ignored the slight, his posture a study and calm. "My apologies, Your Honor. The name is Cole. I was detained on an urgent federal matter." "A federal matter?" Finch scoffed, leaning into the microphone so everyone could hear. The condescension was a physical force. "And what department would that be?" "The post office." A few sycophantic chuckles echoed from the front row. The insult hung in the air designed to humiliate. "In this room, Mr. Cole," Finch continued, his voice rising, "I am the authority, and your blatant disrespect for my schedule has a price. I'm finding you for contempt." He paused, savoring the moment. $850. The amount was a punch to the gut. $850, Elias thought, his jaw tightening. For being 10 minutes late to fight a bogus tax hike on his grandmother's house, a house she'd lived in for 60 years. All because he was finalizing a federal racketeering indictment against a corrupt CEO. The judge's ugly game was instantly, painfully clear. "Your Honor," Elias began again, his voice perfectly steady. "If you would just allow me to explain the circumstances." The sharp crack of the gavel cut him off. "No, I will not." Finch's face was flushed with power. "Consider the fine and expensive lesson. Now what is this other trivial issue you have?" Elias took a slow, deliberate breath. He walked back to the podium. He was no longer just a grandson fighting a city error. He was an officer of the court witnessing a flagrant, racially motivated abuse of power. "Your Honor," he said, his voice now carrying a new weight. "It's about an erroneous property tax assessment." He opened the folder. The city raised the valuation by 30% without cause or notice. Finch waved a dismissive hand, not even glancing at the papers. "I'll look at it when I have time. We're still on the subject of your contempt." "With all due respect, sir." Elias's voice hardened ever so slightly. The delay was unavoidable. "It involved a Rachel case I am prosecuting for the U.S. Attorney's Office." The judge's eyes narrowed into slits. "Your grand titles don't give you a pass here. The rules apply to everyone, do they?" Elias thought. He looked the judge squarely in the eye. "I understand the importance of rules, Your Honor. I've built my life on them. That's why I have to ask. Are they being applied consistently to everyone in this courtroom today?" A collective gasp went through the room. The court clerk's hands froze over her keyboard. Judge Finch's face turned a deep blotchy red. "Are you questioning my integrity, Mr. Cole?" He seethed. "I am asking for clarity, sir," Elias replied, his tone unwavering. "To ensure fairness for every citizen in this room." The gavel slammed down, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "I will not be cross-examined in my own courtroom. The fine stands. We are done here." "Thank you, Your Honor," Elias said, his face an unreadable mask. He gathered his folder and walked away from the podium, the weight of every stare on his back. In the gallery, an older black man met his gaze and gave a slow, deliberate nod of solidarity. As the session ended, Elias strode out of the courthouse into the North Carolina Sunday. This was never about a tax bill. It wasn't even about the fine anymore. He pulled out his phone and found the number for his boss, Elena Morales. He paused. No, he decided, his resolve hardening into steel. Not a phone call. Not for this. He turned and walked back into the courthouse. Judge Alistair Finch thought the matter was closed. He was about to learn a fundamental truth. You never ever pick a fight with a man who gets the last word for a living. The courtroom was nearly empty now. Judge Finch was at his bench, shuffling papers with a weary sigh. He looked up as Elias approached the podium again, and his face twisted into a mask of pure irritation. Mr. Cole, the session is over. If you have further business, you'll need to schedule it like everyone else. With all due respect, Your Honor, Elias began. His voice quiet, but resonating with an authority that made the bailiff, Officer Miller, straighten his back. I believe it's imperative that I introduce myself properly. Elias held up his credentials. The embossed golden eagle of the United States Attorney's Office seemed to catch every ray of light in the dim room. My name is Elias Cole. I'm an Assistant United States Attorney for the Western District of North Carolina. For the last 10 years, my focus has been prosecuting public corruption and civil rights violations. The blood drained from Judge Finch's face. The petty courtroom tyrant persona dissolved in an instant. He was replaced by a pale, slack-jawed man who looked like he'd just been told his house was on fire. The reason I was late, Elias continued, his tone cold and precise, was to sign off on a federal racketeering indictment. And while I was waiting, I couldn't help but notice certain discrepancies. So I took notes. He held up a small notebook. I documented my own treatment, of course, but I also documented your vastly different responses to the other latecomers. Specifically, the white defendants you let slide and the black man you chose to humiliate and fine. Finch's lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. If you have some kind of procedural complaint, there are official channels for that. As an officer of this court, I am legally and morally obligated to report any pattern of judicial bias I witness, Elias stated, his voice like stone. And what I witnessed today, Your Honor, wasn't just a procedural issue. It was a potential violation of federal law. The silence was absolute. Mrs. Gable, the court clerk, stared with wide, terrified eyes. Judge Finch shrank in his high-backed chair. His authority stripped away layer by layer. You may go, Mr. Cole, he stammered, his voice a hoarse whisper. Elias retrieved his credentials. Thank you, Your Honor, he said, letting the words hang in the air. Rest assured, this will be addressed properly. That evening, a single encrypted email to his supervisor, Elena Morales, set the wheels in motion. The call came at 8 a.m. sharp the next day. Elias, I read your report. Elena's voice was clipped. All business. If this is as blatant as you say, it's not a one-off. It's a pattern. This is systemic rot. It is, Elias confirmed. What he did yesterday wasn't even subtle. There was a sharp exhale on the other end. Big. I'm forwarding your report to the Judicial Conduct Commission. This is happening and it's happening now. Her tone softened for a moment. Get everything you can. Dig into his case history. When this storm breaks, I want us holding the lightning. The call ended, but Elias's war was just beginning. He buried himself in public records, and an ugly, undeniable pattern bled from the pages of Judge Finch's rulings. Fines for minor infractions were consistently 3 to 4 times higher for Black and Latino defendants. White defendants cited for the exact same offenses were overwhelmingly let off with a simple warning. Then the commission descended on the courthouse. Investigators in quiet suits began interviewing the staff. They hit gold faster than they expected. The court clerk, a nervous middle-aged woman named Mrs. Gable, finally pulled an investigator aside. I have something you need to see, she whispered, her hands trembling as she unlocked a bottom desk drawer. She pulled out a small, worn, spiral-bound notebook. One of the investigators looked at her. His voice gentle. Ma'am, you took a huge risk keeping this. Why? Mrs. Gable clutched the notebook to her chest as if it were a holy book. I have a son, she said, her eyes welling with tears. "Good boy." Every time that judge would tear someone down, fine them so much they couldn't make rent, ruin some young person's life over nothing. I saw my son's face. I couldn't throw the notes away. Felt like a sin. The notebook was a bombshell. It was a meticulous handwritten log of dates, names, and damning quotes. A secret history of Judge Finch's courtroom tyranny. Her testimony was quietly corroborated by the veteran BAUF, Officer Miller. 20 years I've been in this room, he told them. His voice low and heavy. Seen him treat folks different based on the color of their skin since day one. Always knew it was poison. While the commission worked in the quiet halls of the courthouse, the story exploded online. A law student who had witnessed the confrontation posted a detailed account of the exchange. It went viral overnight. The post was shared thousands of times, then tens of thousands. It was a spark that lit a firestorm. Suddenly, everyone had a Judge Finch story. The local news station's Facebook page was flooded with testimonies. One story caught fire above all others. A single mother fined a crippling $1,000 for a broken tail light, a fine she couldn't possibly pay. She had tried to explain she was on her way to her son's chemo appointment, but Finch had cut her off, sneering that people like her always had an excuse. Her story became a symbol of the judge's cruel and biased reign. The local news ran with it. Bias on the bench. Federal prosecutor accuses local judge of discrimination. The pressure on Finch became a physical force, crushing him from all sides. He issued a weak statement denying any wrongdoing, but the walls were closing in. By the end of the week, Elias's phone buzzed. "'Twas Elena. The preliminary findings are in," she said, her voice grim. "The numbers are staggering, Elias. They're worse than we thought." Black defendants in his courtroom were fined over 4 times more often than white defendants for the same infractions. It's a clear, undeniable pattern of systemic bias. "So, what's the final move?" Elias asked. "The State Judicial Board is convening an emergency session, and Elias," she added, "they want you there." Faced with an official inquiry, a media firestorm, and the irrefutable evidence from Mrs. Gable's notebook and his own case files, Judge Alistair Finch was utterly alone. The final reckoning didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened in the cold, sterile conference room of the State Judicial Board. Finch sat at one end of a long, polished table. At the other end sat 3 stern-faced senior judges, the head of the commission and Elias Cole. The head of the board, a severe-looking woman named Judge Sterling, slid a thick folder across the table. "Alistair, we have read the report. We have seen the evidence. We have heard the testimony. Frankly, it's one of the most egregious patterns of judicial misconduct this board has ever reviewed." Finch began to bluster, his face turning purple. "This is a misunderstanding. My words are being twisted by a disgruntled. Do not insult our intelligence." Sterling cut him off, her voice like ice. "You have 2 options. Option 1, you resign effective immediately. You walk away and we handle this internally. Option 2, we proceed with a public hearing after which we will not only recommend your removal from the bench, but we will also forward our entire file to the U.S. Attorney's Office for a federal civil rights investigation. And Mr. Cole here," she gestured to Elias, "will likely be leading that prosecution. You will face prison time." The color drained from Finch's face. He looked at Elias, who met his gaze without a flicker of emotion. The fight was gone. All that was left was the pathetic, deflated shell of a bully. A resignation letter was placed in front of him. His hand trembled as he picked up the pen and signed his name. His career ending not with a bang, but with a scratch of ink. His fall sent a shock wave through the state's legal system. The investigation he had triggered forced a top-to-bottom review of the municipal courts. The first seeds of change grew in the very courthouse he had poisoned. Officer Miller, the veteran BAUF, was asked to lead new de-escalation in bias training workshops. "Our job isn't just to keep order," he'd tell the new recruits, his voice ringing with hard-won authority. "It's to ensure every single person who walks through that door is treated with dignity." If you see something wrong, you speak up. Your silence makes you a part of it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.